Hey team, welcome back. My name's Nick, architect in the US, Colorado, Utah. Today, we're going to do a fun tutorial on curtain wall slash storefront, uh, creation, editing, management, all those things. I'm assuming for this tutorial that you already have a kind of basic knowledge level of what curtain walls or storefronts are and how to initially create them. So this is kind of the next tutorial showing you some great tips or tricks for things to do, things not to do when you're building and editing curtain walls. Mainly today we're going to be editing a curtain wall to match another curtain wall. Um, so basically today we have this curtain wall here, and this is kind of the design intent, and we want to match that. We want to match this curtain wall on the right to this curtain wall on the left. And I'm going to show you some great quick tips to do that. Some nice kind of insider tips that you may not know about unless you do this all the time. But let's get started. So first things first, we have a facade here with, and when I say curtain wall, it could be storefront. They're kind of interchangeable in Revit in terms of how they're created and how they're edited. They're not the same thing, but for this tutorial, curtain wall, storefront, think of them as, kind of the same thing for this tutorial. Um, so you'll see we have this design intent. We have this one that we're going to match to that design intent. And first, before we get started, when you're editing curtain walls, one thing that I personally like to do, and I think it's very useful, is up here under Modify, the Select drop down. If you select Elements by face and have that, generally I'd recommend not having this check marked when you're working in Revit just on a daily basis. However, there's certain times where you might want to check mark this box. It helps you avoid having to tab all the time to select elements. For instance, if you're working on an elevation on a facade like this and you want to select curtain walls quickly, I suggest having this on, and I'll show you why. When you have this on, you can just single click and grab the entire curtain wall. As you'll see, it selects this entire extent of the curtain wall, so the entire curtain wall with one click. If you don't have it on, we'll turn it off real quick. And when you don't have it on, it doesn't just let you select the curtain wall with one click. You have to tab into the edge. You have to find that edge. You got to tab like 4 or 5 times to find that extent. There it is. It just saves time to use this tool. And again, I recommend turning it off when we're done, when you're done editing your curtain walls, because if you leave this on, and I'll show you real quick why. If you leave that tool on and you're working on a floor plan and you have a floor and right now it's pinned, but say your floor's unpinned and you happen to select the floor and like one click you like shift it, maybe you're moving around too quickly and you happen to like accidentally click onto the floor and shift it with one click, because generally when you're selecting a floor, you have to tab onto the edge if you don't have this tool on. So I recommend, let's go back and realign that and back into that. But I recommend, so there we are back to where we started with the floor pinned. And I just hit Control Z to do all that. But yeah, so I would recommend keeping that on for today while we're doing this, but off in general. So back to elevation. Again, see how easy it is for me to just quickly select each of these. It's so nice. But next thing I want to show you is to avoid editing the profile of curtain walls in this way. So say I select on a curtain wall and I want to edit the profile with this tool up here. First off, I don't like this tool. I don't like editing profiles in this way unless I have to, because let me show you real quick why. Say I edit the profile and I move this whatever amount. I'm just showing you, so I'm not going to be exact. Say I shift it in because I want this curtain wall to not be 12 feet wide anymore. I want it 11.6, and then I hit the green check mark and say okay. With using that edit profile tool, it now has a second line that's very frustrating, shown everywhere. When I select this wall, you'll see that the shape handle is now out here where the wall originally was, and there's another line showing where the wall currently is, and this original wall shape handle and dotted line dash line will not go away. So the way to get rid of that and back out of what we just did is to select the curtain wall and reset profile back to where it was. Same thing with height. You can edit profile. This tool you can use for any curtain wall storefront management. However, I recommend not doing it. So same thing with height. If you drag it out and remove constraints and select OK, you're going to have still that secondary line kind of getting in your way, just being annoying. So don't do that. Let's back out of that, reset profile, and we're good to go. So 2 quick tips right off the bat that you want to keep in mind when editing curtain walls. The way curtain walls are set up in Revit, they are on a grid. Grids are how you manage them. Grids are how you manage the mullions, how you manage the doors within the curtain walls, how you manage the panels, the individual glazed panels within the mullions. Everything's based on like a grid layout, right? And to tab into those grids, as you may or may not know, you can tab into each grid. Just tab until you see that dashed line. Then you've selected the grid. You know, all these mullions here that you see, these gray mullions are on these grids. That's the way Revit sets up curtain walls and storefronts. And it's both good and bad. As long as you know how to manage the grids accurately, it should be okay. But a lot of people don't manage them accurately or understand how they work. So that's right off the bat something important to know about them. When you're also managing grids, you can go to, you can select on the grids that are already there, of course. You can go over to architecture and curtain grid to create a new grid. And when you select curtain grid, you'll have these options above. All segments, one segment, or all except picked. The one I use the most is usually, these 2 are the ones I use the most, all segments or one segment. And, you can use, I use all 3 actually, but all segments is probably like the most basic one you will use when you're creating a grid. So you can, just to show you, let's do this on, not the design intent one, but on the one we're going to update. So say I click here once. What that's going to do is add that grid there and then add kind of the basic mullion that's already set up within this curtain wall type to that grid. So as you'll see, we have these 2.5 by 7.5 rectangular mullions on this grid line and throughout the curtain wall. We also are using a second mullion type, which is a rectangular mullion 1 inch by 1 inch. And that's also on both of these curtain walls. So when you see these lines here, and this tutorial may somewhat be all over the place, I'll try to be as organized as possible, but some things come up when I see them, and so I'm gonna hit on that. And so when you see these lines here, this just means that's where the grid is located. However, there's nothing on that grid, so that's what that thin line means, is there's a grid there, but there's nothing showing on that grid. To get rid of that thin line, you can select the grid, click add or remove segments above here, and then select right. You don't want to, so when you select add or remove segments, you want to select only where you want to remove or add. So since we have that, you see that the grid is going all the way across the whole width of this curtain wall. I just want to select here to remove it. So that has removed that segment on that grid line. The grid line is still there, as you'll see here when I tab into it. Grid line's still there. However, it's removed at that segment. And the way you can tell it's removed at that segment is if you hover over the grid. Excuse me, I'm a little thirsty. When you hover over that grid, you'll see there's dashed lines where the grid is not currently active. Over here, and here, and here. Those 3 segments. And then in this segment here on the right, the grid is active. So that is just kind of insider tip if you don't work with curtain wall grids very often. And it can be a little bit confusing at first knowing what you're looking at. if you see that line, you're like, well, why is there this random line here? And that's why. You can just add or remove and get rid of that. Okay. So let's get started with, basically we're going to turn this curtain wall into this one. And if you go in floor plan, we can do this a lot easier by just deleting this curtain wall, right? So I could select it, make sure I have the whole thing selected, hit delete, right? I'm not going to do that right now. And then go to first floor. And this is, this is where we were on this elevation here, looking this way. So these are those two double doors. This is the curtain wall that we're looking at. So if I were to, sorry, this is actually the curtain wall, the one we're going to edit to look just like this one. But theoretically, the fastest way to make a curtain wall like this and duplicate it down here would be to just, delete this, right? And then grab this curtain wall and copy it, right? Mirror it, pick axis, and I already have a reference plane. This is a 90-foot section from grid line top to bottom, and then I've cut that in half with a reference plane, this green dashed line right here. So I've cut that in half, so 45 and 45, right? Follow me? So you could just duplicate it, you could just mirror it across this line like so. And when you go back to elevation, it's going to appear identical. So obviously that's the quick, easy, fast way to duplicate this. Since it's identical, we want the same thing here. But for this tutorial, let's back out of that, because for this tutorial, I want to show you kind of how to manage this manually and do this accurately. So we're not going to take the fast, easy route. We're going to do the slow, methodical route. Because who knows, maybe you just need to get better at your curtain wall management. All right, so let's get started on editing this. First off, you'll see basically you want to align grids first, and that's going to be with the align tool. So I have a grid here and a grid here, and I have no idea right off the bat, just looking at it, if they're perfectly aligned or not. So I'm going to use the align tool. For me, I use AA for that keyboard shortcut. You can find the align tool up in the annotate section up here. But I'm going to use AA, and I'm going to select, make sure I have the grid selected, right? If I hover, it tells me what I'm selecting, and align those. It looks like they were already aligned. Next, I want to align, and when you use the align tool, as you probably know, you want to select the thing that you want to align to first, and then select the element that's going to be aligning to that reference. So I'm going to select on that one. All right, great. So I have this aligned, I have this aligned. So we're working on the horizontal grids first, okay? Next, we have a grid here. We also have a grid here, which is too low. So I'm going to align those two grids. Okay, great. Next, we have a grid here, right? And I guess we should first check that the height is accurate, but I've already done that. And if I measure that dimension of that to the floor, it's 12.6. So both of these are 12.6, right? If I measure from there top to bottom, 12.6. So the height's the same. So we're good there. That would have been the first step. I just had already done that. So let's make sure. So these two are aligned. Next, we have this grid here, this horizontal grid, aligning to this horizontal grid. And that will need to be edited later. However, right now, we're just aligning the horizontal grids. All right, next we have this bottom section. So this is like a metal panel, kind of kick plate bottom. We're going to align this grid, take that grid and align this grid to it. Great. This is working out well so far. So we now have all the horizontal grids aligned to each other using this one on the left as a reference, okay? And you can just double check everything by grabbing a dimension and making sure that these, all match up, right? So I recommend grabbing dimensions when you need to check things. but it looks like these are all checking out accurately. And the nice thing about dimensioning curtain walls is it always grabs the center, because that's it always grabs the grid lines quickly, which would usually be the center of the mullions that are placed on them. Okay, so now that we have the horizontal grids aligned, let's check the vertical grids. So let's go here. Let's grab the edge of this and the middle of each of these and select off. Let's grab the edge of this and the middle of each of these. And yeah, we have to get rid of this one that we created, right? Because we don't want that. It doesn't, there's no vertical here. Okay, so we have 2 9.5, 2 9.5, 3 3 3/4. So it looks like, you know what? We actually want to center this one. So it looks like this one's actually more accurate, right? Because we have this in the center at 3 foot 2.5 on each side, and then 2 9 on the far sides. So we actually want to modify this one, and that's my fault for not doing that prior. And to do that, we're just going to grab the center of that and these two edges, okay? And we're going to hit equals equals. And when you hit equals equals, it'll just move that center line. So let's try that. And there we go. We now have this center mullion centered within the curtain wall, right? 3 2.5 on each side and 2 9.5 on each side. Great. Okay, well, let's delete that. Equal equals. Revit's going to come up here and say, a dimension that has EQ constraints has been deleted, but the elements will still be constrained. Push unconstrained to remove the constraints, or OK to leave elements constrained. I want to leave them constrained, so I'm going to hit OK. I think that's fine. Usually I just hit OK on those warnings. All right, so we now have the verticals aligned correctly. And let's delete that dimension. We can leave this one up here. It shouldn't matter either way. If you want to keep them, go for it. Okay, so now we want to get rid of this grid line by tabbing onto it and making sure it's unlocked first, which it is. And then, so we'll select it, make sure it's unlocked, and then hit delete. That's going to delete the grid line and the associated mullions on that grid line. Great. All right, we're getting somewhere. Next, we want to, let's get some of these mullions matching in size. So we have if we tab onto these mullions, which takes a couple tabs, we have a 2.5 by 7.5 mullion on each side. These are the same. Okay, and then we have a 1 inch by 1 inch rectangular mullion in the middle. So let's change these. Let's select and then control select both of these, and we can change the mullion here in the edit type property. We'll just select it and go down to the 2.5 by 7.5 mullion. Okay, great. So that's edited. So we're working top to bottom here. It doesn't matter which way you kind of, everyone has their preference. So these are looking identical up top. Going down, it looks like we have some mullions to change here on this grid line. So we'll select. So one way to do this is to control select onto both of those and change them like we just did back to the 1 inch by 1 inch, which is a fine way to do it. Another way to do it is you can use, the match properties. So match type properties, which is MA in my Revit. I select that, select the one I want to match to first, right? And then I can hold control as I select the ones I want to match to it. So that's a fast way as well when working with curtain walls and mullions and trying to make things look alike. If you have kind of a set design intent that you already want and you're just trying to match to it, you can do it this way with the match properties tool is really nice. So that's that. Working top to bottom, looks like we're getting there. This one may be a little tricky. It looks like we have this grid line, but it's not fully in effect on this side. So I'm going to select this grid line, or tab select into it. I'm going to add or remove segments, and I'm going to add this segment here on the left. Because if I don't add that segment, I can't add a mullion there, right? If I were to not add that segment and try to, create a similar mullion, which I use CS for create similar, I can't do that. So again, select the grid, add remove segments up top, and add a grid segment on the left there. All right, now I can do the same thing. Select a mullion I want to match type properties to. Select the one I want first to match to. Sorry, we can't use match type properties when there's no mullion there yet. So we'll have to use create similar or just add a mullion. I already showed you the create similar tool. Use keyboard shortcut for that. But if I wanted to just go the old school route and add a mullion, I go to architecture up top, mullion, grid line segment mullion actually, because we just want one segment, and then we select the mullion. So it's a slow process. You got to make sure you do things slowly at first, especially if you're not used to this. So you select the mullion type that you want there, which is 1 by 1, and then we select right on the grid itself to put that mullion on the center of that grid. Okay, and then escape to exit out of that. It looks like we're almost there. So we have these aligning with each other with the correct 1 inch by 1 inch rectangular mullion on both sides. All right, I think we are about there. Let's check the size of the door, which is, if you select onto the door within the type properties, it shows you the door panel width, which is, we want a 3.0 door, so that's great, 3-foot door width, and the height of 9 foot, which should be the same as over here, 3 foot by 9 foot door. Sorry, it's obviously a double door, so it's 2 3-foot panels, right? Just to make that clear. So it should be 6 feet from here to here. Okay, great, we got 6 feet there. Same thing on this side, should be tab onto the edge of the door itself. We have 6 feet by 6 feet. If you're wondering what this little mullion is here, so we have the 2.5 by 7.5 mullion on this grid line here above the door, and then we also have a curtain wall door subframe that I've created within this curtain wall, and you can add those. You can add curtain walls within curtain walls on Revit. It's not too hard to do. You can add regular walls within a curtain wall in Revit as well. And basically it's just very straightforward to do that. I'll show you that in another video, not this one. But just to be aware, that's what this thin, I think it's 1.4 inch, door subframe on either side. All right, so we now have everything checking out. Let's dimension these again just to make sure we're good. So the vertical mullions look like they're aligned with each other, right? We can align those. And these horizontal mullions, which we've dimensioned on both sides, look like they align with each other. If you want, you can use the match type properties for dimensions as well. See how this dimension's bigger than this one, the font. You can select the one you want and then the one you want to match it to, and align those. Say I want to have all these the same, I can control select on each of these to align those and make sure they all match, right? Looks like those are already the same, 1/16 inch linear dimension. All right, I think we're good to go on this video. I think, well, let's see. No, we have one other thing here. See how the vertical mullions are continuing up throughout the curtain wall on this design intent one, and on this one they are not. So one quick edit there is to just select, so this is kind of an annoying part of Revit, is selecting these and managing these, but you can toggle mullion joins by selecting the mullion you want to edit, and then toggle mullion join, selecting that little crosshair, and that will join those. They can be tricky, they don't always work. That time they did work well, but sometimes you might even have to, delete mullions and then re-add them to get that toggle mullion join to work. That is one frustrating part about Revit's curtain wall setup, storefront setup. But we got that fixed, and that's looking great. The verticals continue all the way up, and then the horizontal comes across, and then these horizontals are split by that vertical. It's looking great. So I think that's all I want to show you on this video, is kind of the basics of that. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off select elements by face because I want to keep that on for security reasons. I just like to keep that off unless I need it. Okay. I think if you guys have any questions, go ahead and submit them below. I'll try to get to them when I can. If you have any comments, submit them as well, and I'll answer anything when I can get to it. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe and like button if you got anything out of this video at all. Thanks. Have a great day.